And we're very glad to be joined by our special guest on this broadcast, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat, joining us on the show. Thank you very much, sir. And also welcoming Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former Director General Infantry. Namaste, sir. Thank you both of you, gentlemen. Ambassador Kumar, I'd like to start with you. Now, looking back on the flip-flops and up and downs of the Sino-India ties or China-India relations over the past 7 decades, and particularly the consistent border standoff we have seen in Ladakh sector post-2013. Do you think, looking at these 6 salient points, we have come to a point of establishing a sort of correct understanding of each other?
The honest answer. Thank you very much, Sakal, for having me first.
Our pleasure.
No, the honest answer to your question would have to be not yet.
Okay.
I think what is significant is that there has been no dialogue or a consistent dialogue for the last 5 years at the highest level. But what you have seen over the last 2 months is that the President of China and the Prime Minister of India have met. The 2 foreign ministers have met. The special representatives have met, and not to mention or not to forget that the defense ministers have also met on the sidelines of the ASEAN Defense Plus Forum. So I think that is significant. There has been a plethora of contacts between the 2 countries, and that is, I think, extremely important. I think I just want to say the following, and I'm sure you will have follow-up questions for me.
Sure.
The fact that there has been separate readouts by India and China, that is, there has not been a joint statement. What you have is a separate readout by India and by China. I think those points of convergence and points of divergence are extremely interesting, and I will address them perhaps after my co-panelist makes his opening remarks.
Yes, the points of convergences along with the points of divergences is going to be my next question. But opening remarks from General Kulkarni, having said that, have we almost arrived at a stage of peaceful coexistence? Or perhaps do you see a possibility of it in the sense we have made a beginning where we have finally reached to a stage where differences can be hashed out through dialogue and consultation?
Thank you, Sakul. I think the ambassadors said it very well. Most important is the trust betrayal. There's been a trust betrayal over the years, and we had so many agreements. And if what has happened in 2020, it has to happen again, if ever it has to, then it is bad. Trust is very much important, and trust is something which has to be regained, and that is where the whole problem lies. It's good, trade talks to open, Mansover Yatra to be done, the river sharing things to be done, perfectly fine, and all of it is very fine. But very important, what is it to be done on ground? Because this engagement has taken place. De-escalation is what is the next step, and then the de-induction part. But for the de-escalation, if the trust is there, then it's worth it. Because if there is no trust, then constant verification, it leaves everybody to, what could be well termed as very difficult, and you're on tenterhook. And if you're on tenterhook, then it's not worth it. Because ultimately, if the sensitivity of India is to be seen as peace and tranquility along the border, which was very important for the rest of it to follow. What they've done, yes, peace and tranquility, all that was spoken about. But if the kind of infrastructure that has come up, the kind of troops that have moved in, the kind of all the dual-purpose villages that have sprung up, all indicate that there is bound to be tension, and all these border talks will be there. A positive development, no doubt, a positive development. But until and unless it is translated on the ground with trust, and that trust means real trust, not trust betrayal. The betrayal of trust is what, and the ball is in China's court, because they are the ones who betrayed trust. So it's very important for them to regain trust, and trust has to be regained by the Chinese.
Okay, interesting point. Do you agree, Ambassador Kumar, that the ball is in China's court in terms of working on that, or perhaps bridging the gap of the trust deficit? And to add to that, do you think there are more convergences than the differences or divergences?
So 2 important questions, Sakal. On the first one, I agree with my co-panelist that perhaps the burden of the first move falls on the Chinese because it is the Chinese, as he says, who betrayed the trust. Of course, you have to bear in mind in diplomacy that if you talk to the Chinese, they will not accept that version of events. And that is why I say that while the burden of restoring trust falls on the Chinese, ultimately both sides have to work at the relationship. So that's the first point I will make. On the second point that you have rightly raised about whether there is more convergence than divergence, it's hard to tell because there have been some concrete outcomes from this dialogue of Mr. Ajit Doval and Wang Yi. First, I think there has been a restoration of the border trade. There is then an understanding that both sides will work and have a next round of meeting in Delhi. So all that is very good. But the fundamental divergence, I think, remains, and that is what I would like to spell out in a minute, if you allow me.
Sure.
The point I want to make is that our understanding of how the border issue impacts bilateral ties is not the same as the Chinese understanding. Our understanding is the border ties have impacted negatively the bilateral relationship. So, ipso facto, in order to restore the bilateral relationship to status quo ante, there has to be an improvement in the border and progress towards finding a fair, mutually acceptable border solution. The Chinese readout says that the border issue must be properly viewed in the light of bilateral relations. The properly viewed in bilateral relations is a term the Chinese have been using for the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
What they mean is they say set aside the border question for now. We will keep working at it, but it will take time. Meanwhile, restore the bilateral relationship to status quo ante. That is what the Chinese want. We have also said we want the border talks to be injected with vitality. That is the term we have used. The Chinese have said the border talks will continue and there will be an accumulation of small steps which will ultimately lead to a resolution. Ultimate is a word diplomats use, Sakal, to refer to 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years.
Yeah.
We don't use the word ultimate to get a solution in 2 or 3 years' time.
Okay.
So that, I think, is the fundamental divergence. And that is indeed the reason, in my view, why there is a separate readout by the Indian side and a separate readout by the Chinese side. Having said all of this, I completely agree that it is not in the interest of India and China to not maintain a dialogue with each other. I am absolutely pleased that dialogue has been restored right from the Prime Minister's level down to the level of the working group, that is the Joint Secretary. I'm glad the special representatives have met after 5 years. And I'm glad we have started talking because good old Winston Churchill was right. Jaw is better than war. You will appreciate that in the context of China.
Okay. And in the context of India and China, Lieutenant Kulkarni ji, two major developing countries in the world. We are looking at emerging economies. We are looking at, they are important members of the global south. That's what we know. So the healthy and stable development of China-India relations can contribute majorly to global south growth. I mean, this is a development that is keenly watched by the rest and the West.
No doubt about that. I think India and China are neighbors. You can't change your neighbors. And that both of us are old civilizations. Both have lived together for so many years. It's only after 1950 you can say that things have really gone wrong, because ever since they have actually become our neighbor and decided to become our neighbor. And if that be so, it is only after that that the trust betrayal part starts. Now, having said that, even the economy that we are referring to, China now obviously is an $18 trillion economy with the per capita GDP going beyond 14,000 US dollars. We are a $4 trillion economy. per capita GDP about 2,500 US dollars. Of course, they are miles ahead in terms of economy is concerned. It's very important for both the countries to, be able to mutually accept anything and everything. It cannot be one-way traffic. Chinese have, I personally felt, having interacted with them on numerous occasions on the border personnel meeting, very nice. It surprised me as to why they did and what they did in 2020. That was never expected because been talking to them till 2016. If that was
I just want to quickly add this point here, since you're talking about the military aspect. Lieutenant General Kulkarni, the military standoff along the LAC in eastern Ladakh of May 2020, you recalled that. Quickly followed by the deadly clash at the Galwan Valley in the June of the same year, resulted in severe strain in the ties between the two neighbors. Have we reached to a point after yesterday and the build-up to the yesterday, the two sides can effectively put this behind them?
See, yes, they can put all these things behind because it's been happening on and off. It's not like that. This couple has been going on for many years. That's perfectly fine. But what is important is the trust deficit. And that to be able to earn trust, I look at it as not because I'm an Indian and I'm a military man, that it is China. It is China responsible for everything that has happened along the LAC and in eastern Ladakh. I have no doubt, because every now and then I've been dealing with them and it is perfectly fine. The very fact that they've done what they've done and despite no shots being fired is indicated they pick and choose. So all the agreements, peace and tranquility, no shot fired, but continue to pressurize India as much as they can. Probably their way of checking on what is going on or what is happening, whether they can stand up to them or whatever it is. So India has stood up to them. And now probably China feels, now especially after the Trump has is likely to take over there, maybe feeling a little this thing that, okay, let there be a tactical pause in this kind of a thing, and sort of what the ambassador rightly said, ultimately we will resolve the border dispute. That ultimate, one does not know when that would be, but the trust deficit is there. It's very important for China to earn the respect and earn the trust, because until and unless that is done, there is no use, because if the troops on the border are on tenterhooks, constantly verifying, that's not the way to live. If we have to be neighbors, and we have to ensure that on all fronts, if relationship has to be good, it's very important that both of us have a good relationship even along the LAC and not just everywhere else. And on the LAC, on tenterhooks, always constantly verifying, constantly under pressure, constantly trying to maneuver here and there, construct villages, dual purpose villages, get them over here, do what exactly. I think that is not the way China should do. And I well understand, I'm sure these kind of talks will help India and China to understand each other better. But for the last 75 years, this kind of a thing is been happening. And I don't visualize anything is going to happen very soon. Everything will get resolved.
Yes.
But notwithstanding that, if trust is regained, if the trust betrayal is not there from China, it's an excellent beginning. And I'm sure we can go back to, like the ambassador says, to status quo ante.
Okay. Ambassador Kumar, your take. Interestingly, China has described the hard-won talks as constructive.
Yes, I think I just want to conclude by saying that there are very strong geopolitical reasons why China has behaved the way it has. There are also reasons why India has reciprocated the Chinese extension of their olive branch, if you like. One of the geopolitical reasons is the unpredictability of the Trump presidency vis-a-vis China. The second important factor is the domestic headwinds that China faces, particularly the economic headwinds. The third, I would say, is that I had always felt that China has opened one front too many. They have a problem in the South China Sea. They have a problem in the East China Sea. They have a problem in Taiwan Strait, and they have a problem with the superpower United States trying to rival the US. I don't think this was very clever, frankly, and therefore I also believe there is a tactical reason why China wants to have one lesser front with India. After all, they know that India is not a military threat to China, given the power differential between the two countries. So I attribute the extension of olive branch by China to geopolitics. I attribute India responding to it also in terms of our focus on economy. India wants to develop economically, and one of the reasons, frankly, and this is no secret, there has been a demand by our own business people and others that that there should be business
Right.
ties with China, and that we are dependent on China for many of the items that we import.
Okay. Ambassador Kumar, since you are making a point, concluding remarks from you, the significance overall considering these talks at the SR level or SR engagement, they took after a long hiatus of 5 years. Same question to Lieutenant General Kulkarni, but Ambassador Kumar, you first.
No, hugely important. Despite, I don't want to sound pessimistic, I'm merely saying the future is not going to be easy between these two countries, but nobody can deny that there is now a thaw in the relationship, and there is a clear desire on both sides to talk about the problems that they have in common.
Right. Yes. General Kulkarni.
A positive development, no denying the fact. And hopefully relations, if they improve, it would help both the countries. And very important that there should be peace and tranquility along the LAC. That's very, very important. And I think it's a win-win situation. And if it's fair, mutual, and it's acceptable to both the sides, I think trust has to be earned by China. If that is done, it's mutually beneficial, will benefit both the countries.
All right, gentlemen, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Kumar, for decoding these what does this really mean as far as the forward movement of China and India bilateral relations are concerned. And thank you very much, Lieutenant General Kulkarni. Thank you.